an extension of my own body. It was always there, on the ready, in case anything interesting happened. Of course, nothing that interesting did happen to me. I was a very straight-laced teenager in a very average suburban high school. And I was also remarkably oblivious to the debauchery of my fellow classmates. I was absolutely shocked near the end of my high school career to learn that some kids drank alcohol and did drugs. I had no idea. I thought the worst thing anybody did was sometimes make out with each other in the halls of school, which I thought was completely inappropriate. Then I took a class called Intro to Filmmaking, and my first assignment was to make a video about beauty and how everything in life is beautiful, which I don't know if I really believe that or not, but to my credit, I really challenged myself on it. I thought, okay, if everything is beautiful, you're going to have to film some things that you really don't like. And so, I became that weird girl in high school who carried a video camera everywhere and was always filming random teenagers making out with each other in the halls. And then suddenly, this thing that I found so objectionable before became something that I would get really excited about seeing. Not in a weird way. If there is a not in a weird way, I'm working with that. But high school is a strange time, and everybody learns in their own way. Some people are auditory learners, some people are visual learners, and some people learn by having kind of a creepy hobby. But my love of filmmaking followed me into adulthood, and I got through about a year and a half of college before I decided to drop out of school and move down to LA to pursue a career as a screenwriter. And I worked really hard, and in September 2012, I was developing a TV series with a company at Universal Studios. And I felt like I had it made because this was the same company that had just somehow figured out how to turn the board game Battleship into a movie. It seemed like they could do anything. On the outside, things looked like they were going pretty well for me. But on the inside, I was just going through the motions. I was sick all the time. I was stressed all the time, and I was sick all the time too. And I wasn't taking care of myself. I was in and out of urgent care several times with bizarre symptoms that I would proceed to then completely ignore. And by the time I returned home to Portland for the holidays, I had a large lump growing out of the side of my neck, which was a good indicator to the rest of my family that I should probably actually go see a doctor. And so I went to my dad's doctor while I was in town. I didn't have my own doctor in Portland anymore. And he ordered a CT scan, and on Christmas Eve, he called to tell me that the day after Christmas, I was going to need to do a biopsy. That evening, at dinner, I was fulfilling my annual Christmas tradition of scowling at everyone for eating pork. And my mother casually states, "It's kind of funny how you're the one who doesn't eat meat, and yet you're the one that probably has cancer." I think she was trying to keep it light. But this is how she broke the news to the rest of our family. My little brother just burst out into tears, asking us to explain what's going on, and I'm trying to comfort him, but when I say he's my little brother, I don't mean he's like 12, I mean he's like a 22-year-old petty officer with the US Navy, and he's a large man, and one of my favorite people in the entire world, and I've never seen him cry. And so I just keep saying, don't worry, it's gonna be fine, it's not a big deal, it's going to be fine. And honestly, until that moment, I had kind of hoped it wouldn't be. I didn't care about myself until I noticed that someone else really did. And for the first time in years, I realized that I really wanted to be alive. And then, for the next week, I awaited a phone call that would tell me that if I wanted to be alive, I was going to have to fight for it. When that call came and I answered the phone, I also instinctively pulled out my camera, set diagnosis, before I knew the treatment plan, I knew that for me, the only way I was going to get through this was to turn my camera on and turn this into a project. For the next 5 months, I filmed everything even remotely related to my cancer. And on the days that I wasn't too sick, which was generally once every 2 weeks, I would spend the day at my older brother's house, who had an awesome computer, and I would edit these videos together. And I posted them on YouTube, and I told my friends and family about them. And one day I logged on, and I had 200 subscribers, and then 3, and then 4. Like, I don't actually know this many people. Like I said, I was kind of weird in high school. Like, I didn't actually have that many friends. But by the end, I had over 1,000 people who were watching me having cancer on the internet. And these people were learning a lot more about me than the average stranger. The first video that I posted is kind of like an awkwardly too long scene of me and my parents sitting down with my doctor, discussing my treatment plan. And he mentions that I'm going to have to get my bone marrow tested, which will involve taking a needle and sticking it into my tailbone and sucking out some piece of whatever's in there. And I'm horrified during this part of the conversation, and not at all comfortable with the idea of dropping trout and having a needle stuck in my butt. But when we're back at the hospital in a few days to have this procedure done, it occurs to me that it would be really edgy and cool for my video series to have actual footage of me on the table, freaked out, pants down, getting poked by this needle. So I put my headphones on, and I hold my iPod in such a way that I assume everyone will figure that I'm just listening to music. And then I'm actually just filming them poking me with this needle. And when it goes in, like, it really hurts. And like, a nurse offers that I can like set down my phone and like hold her hand if I need something to grip onto. And I'm just like, no, this is good. And somehow, even though like I'm on a lot of drugs at this point, I still have the presence of mind to be thinking, like, I need to get coverage of this. Like, I need to get this angle. Together in the edit. And this is the way that my mind is thinking the whole time I'm at the hospital. Every time I'm at the hospital. It helped keep me in the mindset that everything I was doing for the story. I didn't think of it as me who was going through these things. I would just think of them as the hoops you gotta jump through if you want to make a documentary about what it's like to have cancer. And suddenly, it was a lot like back in high school, when I was making a video about the beauty of something that I really didn't like. Here I was, trying to make having a disease interesting and engaging and beautiful. And I think when we find a way to do that, we're able to spend more of our time and energy focusing on the things that really matter to us. In my case, because I was a 24-year-old girl who was decidedly totally cool with the whole kissing thing at this point in my life, the thing that mattered to me was going for broke, hitting on this guy that I'd been in love with for years. A week after my first chemotherapy treatment, I was feeling awful, and I was famished because I had just barely been able to start eating solid foods again. But I was hell-bent on getting a date with this guy before I started to go bald, and I didn't know how soon that might happen. So I asked him to go out with me that Saturday night. And he, having no idea that I had cancer at this point, said, sure, let's get sushi. Now at the sushi restaurant, I did recall that raw fish is on the list of foods that you're not supposed to eat while undergoing treatment for cancer. And so I said, this is kind of awkward, but I can't actually eat most of the food here. I'm staying away from raw fish. And he said, haha, why? You're not pregnant, are you? And I said, haha, no, it's nothing as bad as that. And then I realized that I had probably missed a pretty decent segue into our whole cancer thing. A few hours later, we're in his car, and he's dropping me back off at my dad's house, and I still haven't found a way to tell him. And I'm filled with all the panic of someone who knows that they have something very important to say, and only say it before my dad was going to come down to open the front door of his apartment to let me in. And so I look at the boy next to me and I say, remember before I couldn't eat raw fish? I have cancer. And he got very quiet. And he touches my hand. And maybe he was quiet because his head was churning, trying to think of the right thing to say. Or maybe he was quiet because he knew there was nothing he could say. But I'll never know, because my dad appeared at the front of his apartment, and I looked at the boy next to me and I said, sorry, and then I got out of his car and I went inside. The next day he called me, and he said, hey, I'd really like to see you again today. I actually got you a present. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so romantic, I'm so excited. It's like, did you get me flowers? Like, what's gonna happen now? And he revealed to me that he had gone out and bought me 3 small jars of medical marijuana. Now I wasn't sure what to do with 3 small jars of medical marijuana. Or if I should feel weird about driving home with it in my car. I still had cancer for several months after this point, and there were dark times where I was afraid of dying, and then there were other dark times where I was just afraid of being spontaneously raided by the police. I didn't know why that would happen, but I figured that'd just be my luck. I started to lose my hair in February, and I was surprised to learn how much has actually been out there the whole time. Every morning I would wake up and I would look at my pillow and be like, I could stuff a whole other pillow with that. It was really disgusting. The awesome thing was that I never had to shave my legs. But the downside was that I kind of looked like an alien. Generously, my Aunt Marianne sent me some money to go buy myself a wig. And I figured I'd get one that looked kind of like my regular hair, so it wasn't too obvious. And when I went to the wig store, they told me that short hair wigs hold up a lot better than long hair ones, so that also seemed like a very sensible choice. But then I saw the fantasy wig. That's literally the name that was on the tag. And it was long and flowing and glamorous, and it looked nothing like my real hair. But it looked everything like the person I wanted to pretend I could be. And so I went with the fantasy wig. And then I did what any respectable 20-something does who wants to date without actually going outside that much. I made an account on OkCupid. And just like everyone else on the internet, I had a very deceiving profile picture. Nothing like how I look in real life. My first date was with this guy who really liked movies and TV, which is awesome, because then I don't really have to think of anything to talk about. And he particularly liked fantasy stories, which was great because of my fantasy wig. I looked like Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Still, I hope he would never find that out about me. I didn't want him to know that I had cancer. As it turned out, he was actually a grad student at OHSU. He was studying cancer, sometimes in the same building where I was going to these support group meetings. And there was a brief period of time where I was actively worrying about running into him and having my secret revealed. But luckily that didn't happen. And the first time he kissed me, I felt this very sneaky success, like I had convincingly pulled off seeming like a viable dating option. And then he kept trying to run his fingers through my hair. And I had to keep dodging these attempts to touch my head until finally he was like, what is going on? And I was like, the thing is, this isn't my real hair. And he's like, what do you mean it's not your real hair? And I was like, well, I have cancer. And then he got very quiet, which was the reaction I was getting used to at this point. And then he hugged me, thank goodness. I thought you were going to say that you were actually a man. I'm still very bad at it. I like people to never know or somehow already know, and pretty much nothing in between. Luckily for me, it was my video blog that broke the news to my current boyfriend. It was about a week after my birthday. I went to this really cool party, and I met this really cool indie hipster musician guy named James. And as he chatted me up that night, he must have assumed that he was meeting a real life, super hot girl with unrealistically perfect hair. Who had maybe gone kind of overboard on the eyebrow plucking. The fantasy wig had bangs, which kind of helps, but let's look pretty sparse up there. Regardless, he friended me on Facebook the next day. And when he did, the first thing he would have seen was a video that I posted of myself about a week earlier, celebrating my birthday by getting chemotherapy at the hospital. And then I go home and I open some birthday presents, and I get my first ukulele, which is a really great present, and I always wanted to learn to play. And I mean, the first like 2 minutes of this video, it was like me at the hospital having cancer, no fantasy wig, just like a beanie over my scraggly non-hair. But this is the message that he sends me the day that we became friends. Hey, I hope you'll excuse the Facebook stalking, but I couldn't help but notice you got a ukulele. Would you like me to give you lessons? That's pretty much the cutest thing I've ever seen. So I'm pretty good at ukulele now. And like I hang out quite a bit. He's here right now. It's pretty cool. And then it's the end of the love story portion of the story. It's a very happy ending. The other happy ending came about a week later when I got to post another video that I've been looking forward to posting for a long time, which is a video that I go in to get another PET scan to see if there's any signs of cancer remaining in my system. I was really proud of the subtitle I came up with for this video. It was called "Contains Heavy Petting." Yeah, it's a really bad pun. And a really weird way to tell your friends and family that you just beat cancer. That's cool. I liked it. That video received over 100 comments, mostly from people that I do not know and will never meet in real life. And a lot of them were like congratulatory. A lot of people said that they were crying. I was frankly a little surprised that so many people cared or could be affected by my story. I used to be a very shy person and very closed off and sort of painfully private. But the thing I learned most from my experience with cancer is that we need to lean on other people. We need other people to lean on us. Not just if we're sick, but if we're doing anything. Because being a person is really hard. And to be human is to be part of a community. And we have to be there for each other. Because struggling doesn't end when you beat a disease, or when you finish school, or get a job, or fall in love, or recover from heartbreak. Struggling is a fact of life, and I didn't used to be able to handle it. Every once in a while, someone from the internet will watch just one of my videos, just like completely out of context, and so they won't see the end and they won't see that I'm already better, and they'll leave me a comment saying something